The second part of the truth is he didn't change a thing. The only thing that changed was my perspective, right? I started focusing on the things that I loved about him instead of everything that is wrong with him.
Welcome to ASC, where all stars collaborate. Today, we are thrilled to have a real estate legend with us. With over 30 years in the real estate game, she's helped over 4,000 families and is now working with the next generation. She's not just a real estate powerhouse, she's also a best-selling author, podcast host, mom of 6, and somebody I'm really proud to call friend. From barely graduating high school to becoming a Northern California real estate legend, her journey is all about resilience, family, and finding balance. Our podcast guest today is none other than the real estate powerhouse, Marguerite Crespillo. You look so pretty.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. How have you been?
I've been great. How have you been?
I've been good. So, of all the things that we are going to visit about today, what would you like to visit about first?
So maybe what we could do is talk a little bit about, how have you maintained your relationships all these years, right? In real estate, whether that's with clients, whether that's with your spouse, whether that's with your kids, like what does that look like for you? And part of it could tie into the book because I'll say, look, I wrote this book because when I got started in real estate, I had young kids and a husband, and so we could take it from there.
Well, tell me what inspired you to write the book.
So there's kind of two parts to this story, okay? And I'll start with a couple things. What inspired me to write the book? Well, first of all, in a minute I'll tell you the story of what the book is about. But having had that story, and I've told that story many times over the years to people, and I think it's contributed to saving some marriages and helping inspire other ones to work through things. And many people over the years would tell me, you got to write a book, you got to write a book, you got to write a book. And I had always wanted to write a book. Why? I don't know. My mom was a big reader and I read a lot as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I always loved books. I mean, back when, I'm 60. So back when I went books, you had to go to the library, you had to check them out, right? And we always had to be really careful with the books, like, because they had to go back to the libraries who weren't allowed to write in them or bend the pages. Like books were like a really valuable thing to us as kids. And so people kept saying, you got to write a book, you got to write a book. And several times I was going to write books about real estate because, I've been in real estate for a long time, right? But I just wasn't getting like inspired. Like I'd write part of it, but it was like, I was like, I don't want to write a boring real estate book, so that kind of came about. Well, then in 2020, which we all know, COVID year, right? Crazy stuff. I also got diagnosed with breast cancer. And during that time, I remember thinking, I probably need to get some stuff off my bucket list, right? Because like I really didn't know like what was going to happen to me, whether I was going to make it, not make it. I didn't know.
I remember that.
And on my bucket list were two things: finish my book and completely remodel our home that we've been in for 30 years. Those were my two biggies that I wanted to get done. So I had been working on my book for about 10 years, but I just kept shelving it, like couldn't quite. And finally I'm like, all right, I got to get this damn book done. And so I reached out to a friend of mine that had been helping me. I'm like, look, I now have a deadline. Like I need to get it done. And so we put it to, put the pedal to the metal, so to speak, and push to get the book done. And I had this vision of my book, and I know you've got a copy of it and been through it. Because of that history of as a child not being able to mess up books, right. I wanted a book people could write in. and I've learned, so I've kind of learned now, with a lot of books that I get books that I can write in and, scratch. And, here's actually a copy of my book. And I wanted people to be able to write in the book because I knew if I did a story and a journal that people wouldn't do both. And so right. So in the book, you'll see that there are places that you can literally write what all the things are that you loved about them, right? So you can have these blank pages kind of.
I love the pictures in there.
So this was a book like I've never really seen before. My editor kept saying, oh, no, you don't need to put all that junk in there. I'm like, no, I want pictures and I want a place for people to write. So then he ended up reaching out to this gal who was a book designer, and she designed the book The Alchemist, ironically, and which is one of my favorite books. And I kept trying to tell her my vision for it. And my editor kept saying, no, no, no. And she's like, well, hold on. I think you're onto something, right? And so we found a graphic designer, somebody, I mean, an illustrator to design the pictures. I interviewed like 5 different ones, and I said, send me some samples of your, design. And we picked the one who did the design, and I fell in love with those pictures immediately because I wanted something that was I didn't want anything really formal. Anyway,
Right.
that's how the book came about. We published it in January of 2021. So,
Well, it's been stewing in your brain this whole time. But what I think it's interesting is like your expertise. Everybody knows, we know like your expertise in real estate, the way you pour into others, you help others, all that. And you actually didn't write a real estate book.
no.
You wrote a book on love.
Well, okay, so now let me tell you the story of the book and how it came about.
Okay.
So, uh I had been in real estate probably 10 years at this point, and I've now been 30, so it's about like 20 years ago. And my husband was traveling a lot. He was in the mortgage business, so he was traveling a lot. And we had young kids. We had our older son who had passed away in 99. But at this point, we our boys were, I don't know, 8, 9-ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who's had kids at home, you kind of struggle with these, especially if you're working and the whole bit. And our relationship was struggling, I'm not going to lie. And I woke up one day and I said, okay, today's the day. We're either going to an attorney or a counselor, you decide. And my husband looked at me like, huh?
He thought everything was fine.
He thought life was good, right? Everything was good. And luckily, he's a smart man. He made an appointment with a counselor, and we went to the first appointment. And they're like, "Why are you here?" And he's like, "Because she made me." And I said, "Wrong answer, jerk." Right? And I was at that point in our relationship where I was really frustrated, and
Right.
life was crazy, and kids and work, and no time for myself, and which I see so many mamas, kind of complaining about that period of life, and I can relate, right? So we go to the second appointment, and the second appointment they talk about family background, and my husband and I come from very, very different backgrounds. I was raised by a single mom. My mom was married 4 times, and she's in heaven
Oh,
now. And that was just kind of the men she married. There was a lot of, I don't mean this in a negative way, just a lot of different, I didn't have any good male role models.
right. Yeah.
My husband comes from he was first generation American, old world Spanish family, right? So all that Latin blood. And his parents were like, you just stay married no matter what. And so his parents had been married, until they died. So these very different backgrounds. So we go to the third appointment, and you go separately in this particular therapist, and he's like sitting me down. He's like, okay, so are you done? Or is there still a chance that you guys can work this out? And I was like hanging on by a thread, right? And I'm like,
Right.
well, he's at least here, so I'm at least willing to see what we can do. So the therapist says, I'd like you to go and make a list of things you love about him. I'm like, I don't think I can do that right now. I don't really like him very much at all right now.
Aw.
And he goes, well, and I said, I've done the pros and cons, and the cons outweigh the pros. And he's like, well, let's set the cons aside for a minute and just focus on the things that you love about him. I'm like, okay. So I went home. I had in my mind that I'm a competitive person by nature. So I said, I'm going to shoot for 100. Well, for a few days, I couldn't think of anything. I was like, I don't know if it's going to work. And after a few days, I woke up one day and there was tea next to my bed. My husband's always either put tea or smoothies or something. He usually was always up before me. And I'm like, okay, well, I love that. So then, later that day, I saw him picking up the boys from school, and he's a good dad. And I was like, well, he's a good dad. And he's funny. And, everyone loves Joe. So I started to make this list. And the truth is, I did not make it to 100. I only made it to 45. The second part of the truth is, he didn't change a thing. The only thing that changed was my perspective, right? I started focusing on the things that I loved about him instead of everything that is wrong with him. And I think that law, so to speak, applies in so many areas of our life, right? We have a tendency to like focus on,
Mhm.
what is going wrong, what is bad, what are the negatives, why don't I like this, what do I hate about the, we have a tendency to do
Yeah.
that by nature. And so when I started to focus on the things that I loved about him, things started to change. And I I just started to really pay attention in that different way. And, I wish in hindsight that I had known that. I wish that everybody had a copy of this book, especially early on in the relationship, because it's really easy to write all the things that you love about him when you're like first dating.
To reference back to later. Right.
Exactly. Because, in the beginning, everything that they do is so cute, right? It's like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. He does that. Or my husband says, he goes, when we first started dating, everything was so funny to you. And now everything's a damn joke, right? Like and he says that coming from a guy who's now a stand-up comedian. So, it's the things that you love about them end up being the things that drive you crazy and, or frustrate you or you get
Right.
irritated with because your focus shifts.
Yes.
So
Like
I
Juan is
feel
so laid back, and
right,
now I'm like, why he's so laid back? But I love that he's so laid back.
right. And
I
so that,
love
that's just kind of how things work. And I feel like it applies to not only your relationship with your significant other, but that also applies to your relationships with your children, with your clients, with,
that. Mhm.
people that you care about. We have a tendency to be the most hard on the people that we love the most, right?
Yeah.
Like even a respect thing, like you would never talk to me in the way that you might talk to your husband, right? In a negative way. Like you wouldn't be rude to me or, impatient with me
Short.
or
Yeah.
short with me, right? In the same way that you are with your significant other, your husband. And so we have to try to kind of remember that in life a little bit is to really focus on the things that you love about them, even in the challenging times, which is the hardest time to do it, right? In the challenging times when things are stressful and you're reactionary instead of, thinking things through, those are the times when you really sometimes have to take that step back and go, I really love this about him. This is driving me crazy right now, but is that the end of the world? Like, is
Right.
that the boundary? I mean, those are the things that you have to kind of think about. And so it's been a great book. I'm very proud of it and I'm very proud of how it turned out. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people who've, and it's a short and easy book to read and even has pictures. So come on, you can read it in like an hour or maybe
It
two.
it is. It's short, easy, and impactful. And I went back later a couple of times. I This is weird that I share this, but I'd go back and read the reviews on it. And the you have such amazing, touching reviews,
Thank you.
impactful reviews
Yeah.
on this book.
So yeah, I mean, it was a passion project for me, and I'm really proud of it. So thank you. Go
What's your
write me a
next
review.
oh, golly, what's your next passion project?
What's interesting is that my original thought too when I started this book was I wanted to almost write a series of the 100 things. So eh, I'm working on the 100 things I love about real estate. So because I
Oh,
think that even in real estate, especially when the market becomes a challenge, which it is right now, lots of changes going on, right? Lots of things happening.
right.
We can really get focused on all the negatives of it. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, for me, 30 years I've been in real estate and this career changed the complete trajectory of my life. I mean, I don't have any college education, so to speak. I mean, I barely graduated high school, right? My report card said talks too much. It worked out for me. But
This is the perfect career for you. Like if we had a room of 1,000 realtors, who had talks too much on the report card. I
exactly.
think that's what would make us feel normal.
Exactly. So I think that, I mean, that's something I'm kind of working on a little bit right now. I haven't put a ton of time into it, but it's a thought that has come up for me. And, so I would like to do a few more things with that thought in mind, the 100 things
Mhm.
I love. about it, because I feel like, of course, the world needs more love, right?
Right.
And the more that we can share that or spread it, the better we are. And again, real estate has completely changed my whole world. And even if you're not in a real estate career, but you've had the opportunity to buy or sell real estate, for most people, that has been a game changer. I
Yeah.
mean, I think about people that bought a house 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and they bought it with little or no down, like change their life. Like there's no way most people on average can save the amount of money that you
Right.
can build in equity, that you can pass on to your family, or you can, give to your heirs, or you can, hopefully live in for a long time. So to me, real estate has been such a game changer for
Yeah.
me that I feel like the world needs to look at it that way a little bit more, instead of, all the oh, the clients are this, or the other agents are difficult, or I had a great conversation this morning with an agent, and he's a newer agent, and he was kind of trying to figure stuff out. And he said, what do you think has been really a key to your success? And to me, a big part of it is the relationships that I have built and created and nurtured and had over the years. Like that is the most valuable thing that I own, so to speak, or that I feel like I have done. Those relationships have changed my life, and I want to believe and hope that I've had some impact on their life. And it's
Yeah.
so well, I think sometimes agents get all caught up in, I got to generate leads, I got to get business, and they're so focused on the buyers and sellers that they forget about all the other parties that are involved in a transaction, right? They forget about how important the agent on the other end is, the lender that you're working with, your home inspection people, your title and escrow or attorneys, if you're in an attorney state. All those relationships are so
Yeah.
valuable.
Oh, they'll make you love what you do or just look for the exit door.
Right, right. And
And
if you're looking for the exit door, you got to shift your focus, right? Like I'll go
learn
back
those
to
good
my,
relationships. Go write down 100 things you like about that person.
like I go back to kind of a couple of the rules that my husband and I put in place for our relationship. And number one was divorce is not an option, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's an option, it will become the option, right?
Mm,
If you have a fallback plan, you'll fall back.
right.
If and the other rule was to not call each other bad names, right? So we made that decision not to do that. But you know it's the same thing in real estate. If you come into this real estate business with, oh, I'm going to do it on the side, part time, just kind of whenever the mood strikes me, then you cannot be frustrated when your business is, oh, it's kind of on the side whenever the mood strikes you. You can't complain about that. Either you're all in or you're not. And it's
Right.
okay if you're not, if that's your version of success and you just want to do, a couple of houses a year, that's okay. But acknowledge that that's what it
Right.
is, not
That you're
that.
getting what you're getting the results from the efforts you put in.
And that applies to everything, right? How you show up in one area of life is how you show up in all areas of life. So if
Yeah.
you're not getting the results out of your business that you want, if you're not getting the results out of the relationship that you want, if you're not getting the results out of the people that you care about that you want,
Yeah.
it's all a big mirror, right? You got to start with mirror, right? That what's that Michael Jackson song, The Man in the Mirror.
Oh, the man in the mirror, yeah. And
And
I love that you say that because that's so true. Because I also like that mindset, like you bring that up, because it empowers us. Like we're not giving the power to somebody else. We're taking all of the power because we know that we can change the destiny however we want it to be. I love that.
well, when you take 100% responsibility for something, you will find a way to fix it. When you don't take 100% responsibility for things, then you will continue to blame other people and be frustrated and upset or set expectations that are not realistic. So when you say, what was my role in this and how can I fix it or how can I change it, then you'll start to find a way, right? Like my famous quote, I claim this one because I feel like I made it up. You get paid in direct proportion to your ability to figure shit out. You get paid in direct proportion to your ability to figure shit out. So if you, and the example I like to use, let's say you go to a grocery store and you walk in and you're looking for a widget, and you walk up to the customer service person or cashier and you say, "Hey, I'm looking for this widget," and they go, "Oh yeah, I don't know where that is," and they walk away. Or you walk in and you walk up to the person, they go, "Hey, yeah, hang on, let me show it to you." They walk you over to aisle 10. They go, "Hey, it's right here. These are the three top sellers. I personally like this one the best, but is
Yeah.
there anything else I can help you with?" You're like, wow. Now,
Dang.
who's going to rise to management? Number two, right?
Right.
Because they
Absolutely.
put in the effort, they figured stuff out, they learned how to talk to people or how to find things or how to fix things. When you do that,
Mm-hmm.
your life changes.
Yeah.
And, so if you want to get into real estate and it's fine for you to, sell 2 or 3 homes a year, great. But claim that. Don't
Right.
be frustrated that you're not getting those results when you didn't put in the work.
Well, my
Yeah,
favorite line is like that person who, okay, maybe they don't know it's an aisle 10 yet and it's up here, but they can quickly just say, I don't know. Let's go figure it out.
right.
Or we got this. Let me help you. I'll help you figure it out. That
Yeah,
to
I
me
would take that all day long. Yeah,
all
I
day.
would take it all day long.
And
So,
now it's a treasure hunt.
yeah. So that to me is, really a key is like, what can
Yeah.
you do with this, and how can you make it better? How can you improve someone's life, or how can you show up in the way that matches the vision or the dream or the expectation that you've created for yourself? But when you take responsibility, you'll find a way to fix it. If
Mm.
you don't, you'll
It's
continue to blame
empowering.
others.
Yeah, well, yes, and I love and that goes to, I was I'm trying to remember the conversation. I actually had it this morning. It was something along the lines of like, you can't like say that, or getting permission. Like if you're waiting to get permission, right? Or something like that. And it was so good this morning. I wish I could think of exactly what I said.
Well, it's
But
easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, right?
yes, but if you're waiting on somebody to tell you what to do and how to do it instead of figuring out yourself, if it doesn't work out right or well, now you can blame them,
Of course, right.
right? But if you just like make the decision and it doesn't work out, you're the only person. And you got to be willing, right? To be that person, to make the decision and to it, like, don't worry about it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, great. Something great's coming
Well,
out of it. You're going to learn
and
something.
I don't know about you, but I know for me, I love to be around people that take responsibility and are the get shit done kind of people. Like, I love those people, right?
Yes.
I mean, those are my favorite kind of people to be around. It's like, I just want to like hug them all the time. I'm like, yeah. It's
I
like,
agree.
you're
Well,
my people.
every time I see you, I want to hug you. So yeah, absolutely.
You're my people, right? Like,
You're my
I
people.
because I think when you are that kind of personality, which, for those who follow the disc profile, I'm clearly a high DI.
Yes.
Um, we have a tendency to take on a lot of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And when you have people around you that are willing to take some of that off your plate or help you with some of it or take responsibility for their part in it,
Yeah.
I love those are my people.
I think what it does for me, it makes me feel safe. I know that
Agree.
sounds weird, but I feel safe. If I feel like I have to hold it all together, that's when my stress level rises. But when somebody just takes something, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And somebody else takes something.